Okay, good evening, Vietnam. Welcome to the Veterans Live Show, coming to you from LZ Bunker. I'm Ronnie Embris. I serve with the 101st Airborne Division, B Company, 1st to the 502nd Infantry in Vietnam from December 67 to December 68. And I just want to say thank you to all you veterans who are going to watch tonight, and never forget the guys who did not come home. Okay, tonight we have a very special guest from the 1st Air Cavalry PsyOps operations, SP4 Jack Stermer from out there in California land. Should be a very interesting show. Psychology time. Okay, first we're going to go next to our Vietnam timeline. Okay, in the Vietnam timeline, the one thing we have is the downgrade of a lot of forces in 1972 on this date. So the war started to turn down. Guys were coming home. We got tired of it. The peace talks were not going very well. And within a year or so, the whole thing was over for us. But it's never over for us. So let's go to the photos. Hello from Jeffrey Buckley, fishing near Cameron Bay in 1969. Very nice. I like your hook and your bait. Oh my goodness, look at this. Shooting a fish, that's like shooting fish in a barrel. Okay, very good, Jeff. From Jack Wells, another photo for consideration from H Battery, 3rd Battalion, 11th Marines at LZ Ryder, late 1969. Nicknamed H Battery, the Horrible Hog. Wow, what is that? Looks like a, if I would say correctly, a 155. No, probably it looks like a 105. I can't tell the difference. But a lot of good-looking Marines there. Very nice. Okay, too bad we can't read that sign. If you could tell us what that sign says, Jack, go into the questions and answer session at the end of the show and let us know. All right, next question from James McBride with the 2nd Battalion, 27th Infantry, 25th Infantry Division Wolfhounds. We were the first ones into Cu Chi to build a base camp. This bunker was his home for a few months until we leveled the terrain and built the hooches. James, I got to tell you, I appreciate those hooches because I got the Cu Chi in December 67, and the hooches were great, and it was good sharing the time in the base with you guys. Thank you. Okay, next picture is from John R. Wagner. On the left is his first Sergeant Jesus Rabano, a survivor of the Bataan Death March. This is at Camp Williams outside of Quy Nhon in 1970. Boy, that guy saw some interesting things between 1945 and or 44 and 1970. Wow. Welcome home there, John Wagner and Jesus Rabano. Okay, next picture. Roger Cross. That's a nice sports car there, Roger. Got a combat engineer vehicle. That's funny. We stopped in the middle of An Loc for a little break. The 919th Engineer Company, 11th Armored Cav in 3 Corps. Yeah, I enjoyed that. We served with the 11th Armored Cavalry Regiment up there in the Michelin Plantation north of Cu Chi, northwest of Cu Chi towards the Laotian border. And thank you for your support there. Riding on those APCs, though, when they hit the tree and the red ants came down on you, that was the worst thing in the war, I think. Okay, thank you, Roger, for that. And is that it? That's the end of the photos? Okay, let's bring in our guest here, Jack Stermer from California, from the 1st Air Cav in Psychological Operations. Welcome, Jack.
Hey, Ronnie. Good to see you.
You too, brother. Okay, this ought to be a very interesting show with psychology. All right. So tell us a little bit about your introduction into this field and where you started out with your first kind of operation when you got it.
Okay, well, very quickly, I wasn't a draftee or a regular enlisted guy. I was a reservist that got called into active duty, back into active duty in 1968, attached to a National Guard unit that was a armored cavalry unit. And we were originally scheduled to go to Vietnam as a total unit. That didn't work out. Everybody was sent as an individual filler. I left and got to Vietnam in January of 1969. I was a PFC. I had 11 Bravo MOS, and I was scared shitless. I'd also been a senior at UCLA when I got called into active duty, and my major was psychology. That will come into play here in a second. In any case, after I got to Vietnam during the in-processing period, through one of the formations, a lieutenant got up and he asked if anybody spoke a foreign language. I raised my hand. He called me into his office and he said, "How long have you spoken French?" I said, "I don't speak French. Parlo Italiano. I speak Italian." And he fell on the floor laughing.
I would
forgot
too.
to say, who speaks French? They were looking for interpreters
Sure.
to help with the Vietnamese that spoke French.
Right. Yeah.
So we kind of developed a quick bond, and he said, "Hey, listen, I got a better job for you than infantry. You can be an awards clerk." And so for about 3 or 4 weeks, that's what I did. I wrote up the commendations that were given out for various acts of heroism or accommodations. But I'd also flown over to Vietnam with about 4 or 5 buddies. And one of those guys and I were very close. He was assigned to the 1st Air Cav. And a few weeks after I got to Vietnam, I can't remember exactly how, but he somehow got in touch with me and said, "Hey, I'm going to be in Bien Hoa in a week or so. Would you like to go on a PsyOps mission with me?" So I asked my lieutenant. He says, "Yeah, you can have a half a day off." And I went out to the Bien Hoa airfield, jumped on a Huey, and took a half a day flying a PsyOps mission, which basically was sprinkling Chieu Hoi leaflets all over the countryside. And I absolutely loved it. And so when I got back to my original station, I asked the lieutenant, I said, "Hey, I want to put in a transfer." And he said, "Well, you'll never get a transfer approved." I said, "Well, I want to put it in anyway." He says, "Okay, go ahead and do it." And I did. And within 2 weeks, a phone call came in to the lieutenant colonel that ran this particular section. And he said, "Holy smokes, a colonel from the 1st Cav wants to see you." And they sent down a Loach helicopter to pick me up at Long Binh. I flew up to Phuc Vinh where the Cav headquarters were. And I met the guy that was in charge of what's called civil affairs and psychological operations. He was a colonel. And he originally said, "Hey, I got your request, but I'd rather that you joined and worked for me." And I said, "Well, I'm sorry, sir, but I don't want to work for you. I want to go down and be with my friend in the 3rd Brigade." And believe it or not, he said, "Okay, I'll accommodate that." And I spent the night there and then flew in the helicopter back to Bien Hoa or Long Binh. A couple weeks after that, I got the orders. And the next thing I know, I'm with the 3rd Brigade of the 1st Air Cav, and I'm participating in both the Chieu Hoi missions, which were these helicopter flights where we dropped
Okay,
leaflets.
Jack, Jimmy,
Yes.
before we go any further, tell the
Right.
people what Chieu Hoi means.
Yes. Well, Chieu Hoi has got a couple of different meanings. In simplicity, it's a safe package. Safe passage. We used to call it a get out of free jail card. But it was a term used that would encourage the VC and the North Vietnamese to surrender and promise them safe passage or safe treatment if they did so. And it was one segment of the PsyOps program, which was, convincing Charlie to surrender. The other part of the program was broadcasting Chieu Hoi messages. And those were designed basically to throw the fear of God into Charlie and the NVA, both threatening their existence, trying to demoralize them, and then obviously playing the card about what Jody's doing with her girlfriend back home. So anything to undermine,
Jody.
well, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So in any case, those were the two components of the flights on the helicopter. And then the other part of the operation was called civil affairs. And civil affairs was a program in which medical civil action patrols, called MedCaps for short, were deployed to outlying very poor Vietnamese villages and the local indigenous people called montagnards. And these were very primitive living conditions, generally no running water, no sewer system. I mean, we're going back 1,000 years is what it was like. And so these medical civil action patrols would be sent out to effectively do two things. Number one, build goodwill between the American troops and attempt to establish rapport so that when Charlie or the NVA came into these villages, there would be somebody there that would give a high sign and let us know what was going on. And so those were the components that made up of the civil affairs and psychological operations. At least on a simple format, that's
Right.
how I would describe it.
Wow, there you go. Okay. Excuse me?
Oh,
Okay. Here come your photos. Could you describe this one, Jack?
yeah, this is just a great picture taken by one of the first Cab's combat photographers. His name is Terry Moon, and Terry has his own website with incredible portfolio of photographs that he took, again in 1969. And this one is what it looks like, tossing the leaflets out from the helicopter. And that right there is a picture of me doing it. And that was taken by a friend of mine by the name of Paul Segroy, who also was a combat photographer for the first Air Cav. And very sadly, I learned a number of years ago that when Paul got home, he ultimately committed suicide. And that was a pretty tough bit of news to swallow. This is a copy of a Chieu Hoi leaflet. This is what I would toss out of the helicopters, and it was a reasonably successful program. When one of the VC or NVA would surrender, they were called Hoi Chans. There was an indoctrination center where they were, in shorthand, debriefed. Not always was the information that they shared legitimate. Oftentimes they would not tell the truth about what their role and responsibility is.
Right. Yeah.
With whatever unit they were from. Sometimes they made up stories about impending attacks and things along those lines. And I can go into a little side story about that shortly, but they were Hoi Chans. Now, on the flip side of the coin, Charlie had his own PsyOps operation. And this is a leaflet that used to be dropped for our guys to pick up. I don't know anybody that took the $10,000 cash reward, but I can tell you there was many times that it was tempting.
That's interesting. Okay. We have some photos of there you go. We have that here. I don't know what this says, but it seems like it's a Vietnamese family having a little dinner around. And on the other side, there's some a little bit of no, that's not the one. But here we go. This here one shows. Could you put that one back on, Matt? There you go. The other side of that one. Good. Here we go. Here comes. There's a Viet Cong running out of the see that family here having lunch or dinner, whatever it is, and there's our helicopter flies over the top. You got the guy in the bottom right-hand corner running out with his black pajamas and his AK. So they were harboring enemy as we go into the village asking them to surrender or whatever. Next picture. Great. Here we go. This says, if you can't read it out there, it says, American servicemen in Vietnam. Why do American people struggle fiercely for ending the aggressive war in South Vietnam? Because the aggressive war waged by the Johnson administration in South Vietnam brings no interest to the American people but heavy tax, death, and sufferings. The Vietnamese people are struggling for peace, independence, and freedom. They live 10,000 miles away from America, having a grudge, and do nothing harmful for the interests of the American people. So respond to the movement of the American people. Refuse to go to the front to avoid useless death. Press for the evacuation of all U.S. troops and military personnel from South Vietnam and your repatriation. Your families are worrying about you and waiting for your return. And this is from the South Vietnam Liberation Front. Now, they had their own psychology or psychological warfare going with this here with these leaflets. So interesting.
Well, yes, we had the advantage of helicopters, and so
That's
we
for
could
sure.
treat them a lot better than they could.
Yeah.
But
Do you speak
nonetheless,
Vietnamese at all? Do you speak any Vietnamese? Or do you read Vietnamese? You know, like
no.
Well, you dropped the leaflet.
I knew, hey Ronnie, just like you, I knew enough words with
Right.
Mama San to get
And
from
Didi
point
Mao.
A to point B.
And Didi Mao. Okay. One interesting thing about this one is, if you could see this, Matt, and bring this up live on the show on the camera. Here we go. This looks like a laundry list. Okay, and the bottom one says, the only thing in English, if you look, says bazooka. So what they were doing, they were telling the Vietnamese people to surrender arms or whatever these things were, and you'd get 20,000 piastres, what they would call the Vietnamese money. But see, that thing says bazooka on the bottom. That's crazy. Yeah. You got a whole laundry list of things you could turn in, but I don't know what they are. So, okay. So how many trips did you make out there in the field, Jack?
Well, we would throw these leaflets 4 or 5 days a week, just depending upon what was anticipated where Charlie might be, the buildup of the NVA Army that was coming in. I was there in 1969. And, obviously 68 was a horrendous year over there. The buildup in Cambodia and Laos was pretty extensive. And so, our flights were generally not over villages. They were over the jungle areas. And so we'd have coordinates that would be targeted in anticipation of that where, Charlie was building his sources. Also, towards the latter part of that, my time there, we'd be very, very close to the Cambodian border. We may have even crossed over to drop leaflets. But again, this is, what was happening is that we were starting to make excursions into Cambodia at that time. And that's where the major buildup was for the North Vietnamese. So there was lots and lots of action in that quadrant called the Parrot's Peak. So that's, I go out quite often, like I said, 4 or 5, maybe more times a week. And several times a week, it appears we go on these mid-cap missions. Again, depending upon where our base camp was and how safe it might be to get out to a remote village.
Right. How was there any statistics to show how many people surrendered to the Chieu Hoi program?
I've not come across any of those statistics, but I will tell you a story just in terms of what happens when you get access to the internet after all these years. I was able to get access to a recently declassified after action report that was prepared after the what's called the Battle of Ben Long, and that occurred on August 12th. In that after action report, there's an addendum that talks about the number of Viet Cong that surrendered within 3 or 4 weeks of that attack on August 12th. Again, they're called Hoi Chans. And so there's a list of about 5 or 6 of them in this after action report with a couple of sentences about the information that they provided. Again, kind of going back that oftentimes there was a lot of suspicion about the credibility of what these folks that were surrendered.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, right.
And it's pointed out within this report that several of them were talking about a major buildup of the 9th VC or NVA, division, and with an anticipated attack upon this area called around Onlock, and also where I was stationed at Quan Loy, to be somewhere between the 5th and the 7th of August. The attack didn't occur to the 12th. So, the 5th or the 7th, everybody's geared up, boom, boom, boom. You think something's going to happen. The 8th, 9th, nothing happens. The 10th, 11th, nothing happens.
You let your guard down. Right. There you go.
Boom. And it was very, very nasty. That was the most severe combat that I saw in my time over there. It was enough to last me for a lifetime. Okay. But again, getting back to the success of the program, let me just kind of take a sidebar here for a second, Ronnie. I've always been, I guess, surprised over the years that I was able to pull off this request for a transfer. But, I just figured that was good luck. Well, point of fact, I did some research and I came across what's called a debriefing report. These are prepared by every outgoing commanding general of a division. And right about this time that I put my request in, the outgoing commanding general of the 1st Cav prepared a debriefing report. And in that report, he highlights the following: psychological operations needs considerable doctrinal and technical improvement. If we are ever to put real talent into the program, then we need to train and develop our Psy warriors. That particular debriefing report was submitted simultaneously with my request for a transfer, in which I highlighted the fact that I was a senior at UCLA majoring in psychology, and I filtered in a whole bunch of other bullshit that would make me sound like something more than a Spec 4.
Right.
I'm assuming that transfer request and that debriefing report landed on this colonel's desk at the same time, because what colonel is sending a low helicopter down to Long Bend to pick up a Spec 4 to come up for an interview? I may be connecting the dots all crazy, but to me, that's the only reason this whole thing happened.
There you go. How many leaflets do you think you threw out the window there?
Oh,
did you hear me? How many leaflets do you think you? 10 million? Yeah. Oh my gosh!
10
wow,
million.
Man, that's crazy.
Oh yeah.
All right, we got a few stories here.
One, a lot of them.
Let's tell me about some young lady you met on an airplane. Was that going or coming to Vietnam? That was going to Vietnam, right?
Yeah, going to Vietnam. I met a pretty stewardess. What happened is, I think I mentioned that I was lucky to be on that flight with 4 or 5 guys I knew. I was the last one to enter the flight of the 5 of us, and they had saved me a seat on the aisle across from the galley. And that's where the stewardesses prepared the meals and so forth on these flights. And so I started up a conversation with this one pretty girl. I asked her for her address so I could write her a letter. She said, okay. I wrote her a letter. She wrote me back, and we got married 18 months after I got back.
Oh my goodness. You fulfill the dream of every GI who got on an airplane in history.
Listen, listen, you talk about being king of the mountain. I got one more story about being the king of the mountain.
All right, go ahead.
So I'm out in Quan Loy, and Kathy, my wife, she had made a trip from Tokyo to Benoit, delivering more soldiers, a troop transport, and she was waiting for the return flight. and there was some mechanical problems with the plane, so it was delayed for about 45 minutes or an hour. So Kathy finds herself in a hooch someplace and says, well, I'm going to try to give Jack Stermer a call. And so she's on the phone. She's getting people to help her to try to, because she knew my address and so forth, where I was. So a series of calls were made trying to get down to the 3rd Brigade, the 1st Cav, where I was stationed. And she was successful to get to my company commander's office, my company's office, but I wasn't there. But when I came back from the mission I was on, I was the king of that camp because some stewardess had been trying to get a hold of me and where I was, you know? I mean, that just didn't happen. So
there you go.
it's
All right,
my
number
highlights.
two.
Pardon me?
Number two best story I'm going to listen now is about what happened with Joe Namath.
Yes. Well, you know, the New York Jets won the Super Bowl in January 12th of 1969. Kathy happened to, and a couple of weeks after that, Joe was on a USO tour, you know, visiting troops, and he was in Tokyo at Camp Zama. There's a hospital there that was treating a lot of the wounded guys from Vietnam. Coincidentally, Kathy was also in Tokyo at that time, and when she had layovers, oftentimes she would go to the hospital to visit those troops, help cheer them up and so forth. And coincidentally, she happened to be there at the same time Joe Namath was there. So she got her picture taken with Joe Namath, and she became a big star of the family,
That's great.
you know,
That's
because
great.
of that. But I like to say, Joe, you won the Super Bowl, but you don't win them all.
Yes. Well, it's okay. You beat him on that one.
Yeah.
My goodness. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
Well, I think I've
After career?
Pardon me?
After career or during your later what happened when you got back to the States?
Oh gosh. Well, when I got back to the States, you know, I went back to school and I graduated, and Kathy and I got married, and I went off on my career. I'm a fortunate man. I've got 2 beautiful daughters and 4 great grandkids. My grandson is a United States Marine, and so I'm real proud about that. And, you know, I had a career that was in partly in real estate finance for a while, and then ended up in kind of an offshoot of the electric utility industry in renewable development of renewable energy farms.
Did you serve any time back in the States when you got back?
No, when I got out, when
You
I
got
left
discharged?
Vietnam, I was discharged.
Oh, really? Yeah. Okay. That's interesting because not many people, that didn't happen to many people. A lot of them came back to serve somewhere for some time, you know. I guess
Well, in 1969 is when they just started reducing the force. And so there was a lot of guys that if they had served a certain amount of time and their time was up to get out of Vietnam, they were just completely discharged.
Gotcha. Okay.
So 69 was a good year for getting out early.
Okay. What are you doing now?
Well, you know, I retired 11 years ago, but just recently, like so many different veterans, I have a VA loan, and I went through a refinance to get the lower interest rate that called the Streamline program. And in the course of that, I got acquainted with the president of the company that made the loan, and because I had this idea about trying to give back to the veteran community. And so I pitched this notion that this company should have a veterans advocate because they specialize in making VA loans. And he thought it was a great idea. So just recently I joined the company. It's called Simplify Home Loans. My job is the veteran advocate. I'm not engaged in originating loans or discussing anything about the loans. My whole role is to help veterans and veteran family members kind of deal with getting the maximum benefits that they've earned, and to help them with traversing the VA system if they need to file a disability claim or appeal a denial, or seek any other kinds of benefits. That's what I want to help with. And so
And this is for any time, any era, any war, anybody who's a veteran.
anybody, you just have to be a veteran. And
Great. Okay, that's good to know.
there's a lot of things out there. There's discounts that are available that people don't know about. There's all kinds of websites that have a stream of information. And let me just finish for a second, Ronnie. I got a lot of knowledge about how to deal with the VA because my father-in-law, Kathy's dad, was a POW in World War II. And he was also recipient of the Purple Heart. And at the end of toward the end of his life, he became blind. And he was adverse to making any claims to the VA. It's just that generation, that greatest generation. But he needed help. And I took it upon myself to get him that help from the VA, ultimately getting him 100% disability rating with all kinds of other special features that made the last few years of his life much more comfortable. It wasn't an easy task, and I learned an awful lot doing that. It also helped me in my claims with the VA. So I've kind of, in an old school college of hard knocks kind of fashion, learned an awful lot about what's out there, and I want to share it. So I'm with this company. My role again is a veterans advocate, and I reach out and offer the assistance that I've learned just as a free service, no strings attached. Nobody has to be a customer. It's just there. It's the company and my commitment to the veterans community. So thank you for that opportunity.
No problem at all. All right, we got one here. We have any questions for Jack, Matthew? Let's find out. Let's see what's going on here. Here you go. What was the song on this day by the Animals? Are you asking me that? Oh, we gotta get out. We gotta get out of this place, right?
Oh, there you go.
Right?
I guess it was. I don't know. It cracked me up. See that?
Oh no, but Sly and the Family Stone on this date was it a family affair? It's a family affair. Come on, you know that one. All right. Next question. We got another question over here. Oh, good. There you go. Shane Rabin now says, Jack, thank you for your service. Great pictures. What was your fondest memory of Vietnam?
Coming home. catching that flight. It was, I'll never forget in that TWA land at Benoit, and I had a smile that wouldn't go away.
All right. The next question. God bless. Well, Marie Kennemer says, God bless you for helping the veterans with the difficulty of the foxholes and the loopholes of the VA. There you go.
Hey,
that's nice.
I like
Very
that.
Nice, Marie. Thank you. Okay, next. I think that might be it. All right. Well, thank you very much, Jack.
Ronnie, it's been my pleasure.
We'll be in touch. One way or the other, we'll be in touch.
Yeah, good man.
Thank
Have
you,
a good
sir.
evening. Happy holidays,
Appreciate
you
it.
guys.
God bless you, man. Appreciate it.
Bye.
Okay. Any more comments, Matt, or questions?
No.
Nope. Well, thank you very much for watching tonight. See you next week. Same time, same station. Veterans Live Show. Don't forget your veterans, guys. Stay in touch with your brothers wherever you can. The American Legion, VFW, VVA, whatever you could do. Attend parades, Christmas parties, Hanukkah parties, whatever the vets are putting together for you at the local places. You'll feel a lot more at home and a little more at ease. Thank you for the brotherhood you have. Never forget the guys who never came home. Thank you for watching, and welcome home.